All right. Well, shalom, shalom, and welcome to this week's health talk. Make sure I got everyone that wants to join here. Some other people. Second here. All right, I think I get everybody, at least for now. All right. All right. Without further ado, I'll jump on in. Today we're going to be talking about burning fat fast. And this is a little bit different than weight loss because it is possible to lose weight and actually be have a higher percentage of body fat, and that is not what we're looking for. So we want to be able to actually, yeah, burn specifically fat, and that not that fat's bad, but we'll get into all that here soon. So we're gonna have 10 tips, and I'll try to go through these pretty quick. I won't, some of them I'll concentrate on a little bit more than others, and some of them are such huge categories that I may just mention a few things. So this will be kind of a quick talk. If you have any questions, you can write some down. I should have some time for a little Q&A if you have questions. This topic is quite large. So, all right. So the first tip I can give anyone that's trying to lose weight would be basically from Psalm 1. Make sure you have your environment is very supportive. Now, I wish that our families were always supportive, but that doesn't always happen when you decide to maybe do something new. So, but you still need to find, whether it's a person or a group of people, someone to have support and encourage you on whatever goals you're going to be doing. This is actually really important. Sometimes just being in the right environment, it makes your efforts so much more easier. And I just wanted to point something out. This may, some of these things I'm bringing up, they're used in like the NBA and the NFL. Not that I care too much about that, but these are professional athletes and they use some of these things to improve performance. And I will get into the word affirmation here in a second. But this was a study done with children, and I'll show you this here in a second. But they were using different types of feedback, and I'm really big into this since I have kind of a small tribe myself, and we use a lot of laying on of hands and prayer and words and whatnot. But this study is really fascinating, and it kind of ties into having kind of a support group where they had split up school age children into three groups and assigned each a number of difficult tasks. Each group was encouraged in one of three different ways. Group one was praised based on personal trait. You are a good drawer. The second group was praised based on effort. You did a good job drawing. The third group was simply given a high five. And I think that's as interesting because of the hand contact. But giving a child a high five was by far the best motivator of even the verbal versus this physical touch. By the student that received the high fives were most persistent and kept going despite making mistakes. When you give your child a high five, you are not passively praising them for their skill or efforts or grades. You are celebrating with them and getting them to cheer for themselves as well. And when you use high fives as a form of encouragement, you are telling your child, "I believe in you." This is actually really powerful. So, obviously, I think this goes beyond just children. I think just being in a group that is really praising and believes in you and is encouraging you even when things go wrong is really, really powerful. Have been involved in a lot of athletic teams, and we were like, literally, we did everything together. I mean, we went places, we slept places, we ate together, napped together, you name it. We were like a very close family in some of the athletic teams I've been in. So there's something about that. It helps you. It makes your effort. You don't even have to try as hard just because everyone around you is doing the same thing. So I just encourage you because a lot of times if you're by yourself, it's really difficult. So I may have some suggestions in tomorrow's email too of if you're looking for some support. I may have a solution to that too. If you can't find, if you feel like you're alone. So I just want to bring that up. The second tip I would say is we need to really think right. And last week I was talking about the brain a little bit, and I'm not going to rehash everything from the Hashimoto's talk and the brain talk, but really our words or our thoughts will, all these thoughts come out of us nonstop throughout the day. And it's the ones we grab a hold of that can have an influence on us. Not all thoughts are going to have an influence. The ones we kind of grab and the ones we meditate and chew on, they will eventually, those thoughts will become our words, and words will become our actions, and then our habits, our character, and our destiny. We kind of talked about this last week a little bit. And this is really important when it comes to setting goals because I probably should have put this. I'm pretty sure most of the people on this chat, there may be a few guys, but a lot of times there's more women for these things. Guys are very I mean, things have to be really serious sometimes before we'll do something. But and that's a praise for the ladies that are on that are being proactive. But I will say this: in studies done with who speaks more between guys and gals, there's more words coming normally from females. Sometimes guys speak more. I speak quite a bit in a day. And the more we talk, we have more chances of maybe saying something that is maybe against ourselves or somebody else. We need to be very careful with our words and specifically words towards yourself because you can put yourself, you can curse yourself, is what I'm saying. And this is something that we have in my family, we've been doing for quite a long time. Our vocabulary has changed because we say, when you're growing up, people around you just say little sayings like, "Oh, my foot is killing me," or like, "No, it's not really killing you." But we have all these little, um, we basically curse ourselves and we don't even realize it. And so, if you really pay attention to your language, go, where did that come from? Why am I saying that? What's the meaning behind that? It'll be really helpful. And this is important because if you're saying negative things about yourself on this, on that, and the other, you, you are what you think and what you speak. It will come to pass. As a matter of fact, I debated whether showing this next slide to you because this is kind of discouraging a little bit. This is how powerful thought is, our thought life. So there is more and more research being done on our thoughts towards food. And this is crazy because if you think, I'm not even talking go in the room and smell it and, see it, because that's a whole nother thing. That also will have the pancreas release insulin to prepare for a carbohydrate. You're getting ready to eat that. But if you think you're going to eat something, you're thinking about eating something sweet, your body actually starts, the response as if it is eating sugar just by thinking it. And matter of fact, there's studies that show that even thinking it is a bigger response of sugar, insulin and whatnot, than even if eating the food. This is crazy. The now people, you're probably thinking, oh my goodness, not to be paranoid in our thoughts. We can just, if we have, negative thoughts, we can cast those off. But I just want to mention that thoughts are powerful when it comes to just weight loss. So in your thinking of your goals, sometimes I have clients do left brain, right brain activities where they write out whatever their goal is, or maybe even sub steps, and then I'll have them do a right brain activity, maybe draw themselves, where they want to be, whether they're an athlete or whatever. Sometimes visualizing where you want to be, and speaking that out too. You may have to speak to yourself. You may have to strengthen yourself and like
100%.
David. So let me keep moving along here. Okay, so number 3. This one's probably, if you search the net on weight loss, this is probably it's going to be probably the top thing. is blood sugar slash insulin. Actually, these are two completely different things because one's more blood sugar, one's more of a hormonal response from the blood sugar. And I will say this, if you have a blood sugar issue, you have a hormone imbalance automatically, or it can be you can start tipping your hormones, or it's going to cause especially fat storage. Now, this is a double-edged sword because both insulin, if you have high blood sugar, and cortisol, both of these hormones, whether you go hyperglycemic type stuff, and the insulin has to be pumped in and bring it down, and cortisol to bring the blood sugar back up. Both, if you have a bunch of insulin or cortisol, these are some of the major ways why people put on especially fat and around the belly and the back of the tricep and things like that. So blood sugar optimization and insulin, ideal blood sugar and insulin are key to basically meeting your goals, whether you use that through diet, exercise, fasting, etc. We're going to cover some of these things. On blood work, I like to see it somewhere between 80 to 90. Now, some people don't even flinch if it's over 100. The doctors will normally want to start prescribing maybe metformin if you're reaching like 126 and above. So we don't want to be anywhere near pre-diabetic. We want to make sure we're getting that blood sugar slash insulin down. We'll talk more about insulin here in a second because it is a major player in storing fat. So when our blood sugar does spike up, the body will, and maybe I should explain this a little bit. So insulin is basically like a taxi. What it does, it takes not just glucose, but from digestion, our protein, our minerals. It basically is like a little delivery, food delivery thing to each cell of the body. It goes through and it drops off nutrients to the cell. And so as long as you're not don't have too much insulin, the cell's fine with that. You can drop those things off. But once you start having so much insulin in the body, the cell will actually block. It won't allow the lock and key with insulin to enter the cell to happen. It's called insulin resistance. And that's when things can go wrong because it's not only blood sugar is not getting inside the cell, everything else is carrying. And this is important to understand because a lot of people that have blood sugar issues have high blood pressure. Why is that? Well, two key electrolytes are also carried by insulin, potassium and magnesium. So if they can't get in the cell because you're insulin resistant, there's a whole bunch of things. And actually, amino acids can't get inside the cell. Everything's blocked. So this is actually, it's more than just, oh, I'm insulin resistance or whatever. It means you can't get nutrition inside the cell. Your serum's going to be high in everything, but inside the cell, you're going to feel, that's why people feel exhausted, even though their blood sugar is super high. They have all this fuel, but it can't get into the cell. So we want to sensitize the cell so they'll receive insulin again or be able to take it on so that nutrient can get inside the body. Here are some signs if someone's having insulin resistance. And obviously this is a major hormone for basically that's another thing. This is a hormone that is anabolic. It makes you grow. So and it makes fat cells even like hypertrophy. When we work out, cells get bigger. The same thing with fat cells. They can actually get bigger. It's kind of interesting how big they can get. So um, here are 9 symptoms of insulin resistance is fatigue after meals, constant hunger, craving for sweets that's not alleviated by eating them. Waist girth is equal to or larger than hip girth. This is basically metabolic syndrome, syndrome X, where for guys, they look more like a kind of an apple in shape, and a lot of times ladies will look more like a pear. And there is where the fat is distributed amongst males and female is different. We are different, hormonally different, and how where the fat is laid out is different. We're going to talk about that here in a second. Frequent urination, increased appetite and thirst, difficulty losing weight, which is another thing. By the way, as soon as insulin goes up, you're basically you're going to be storing your. I'll put it this way. So if you can't if you're insulin resistant, you can't get the um, all the things that insulin is carrying inside the cell. The next place it's going to be going is going to be stored as glycogen in the liver. It's going to be storing um, uh, in the muscle, and then eventually it'll store in the fat tissue, which is the major reserve. We'll get to the different fuel sources: fat, protein, and carbs. But fat is the main, the long endurance, 9 calories per gram, where carbs and protein only have 4. So fat's double the amount of energy, and it's our long-lasting fuel. That's why a lot of diets like keto and fasting, you link into ketosis. You're using basically a fat as fuel, and insulin is completely, in order for that to happen, insulin has to be down. You have to get insulin down, because as soon as insulin is up, you're going to be storing fat, um, uh, and actually uh, it's going to increase the fat cell storage, but also it blocks fat breakdown. So it's a hormonal reaction. This has, even though there is some basis for calories, it's really more hormonal. I mean, you can be blocked by losing weight hormonally, and there's a certain look to this fat as well when it's visceral or hormonal. Migrating aches and pains, general fatigue, and over here on the right, and actually I think this slide's been on every talk I've given, because this is such a common thing with blood sugar. But again, with metabolic syndrome, the blood pressure is going to be off, because a lot of times you're not getting that potassium, magnesium in the cell either. So here's some interesting insulin symptoms that people will start having. They'll start having these little, but the good news is all this stuff can go away once you get your diet in check. So if you notice these little skin tag things around the neck, they look like little mushroom like things popping up around the neck. I don't know if anyone on the call knows what I'm talking about, but I'll see them on people once in a while. But as soon as you get your blood sugar right and insulin down, these things fall off. So that's actually the good news, and has a little bit to do about liver as well. Another sign some people have is they'll have a darkness around, again, this is around the neck and the folds in their armpit area, behind the knees, in different creases. They'll have this like darker skin that feels quite different. It's quite noticeable. If you see these dark patches, I wish that I would have had found a picture of someone a little bit more fair to see how dark this could look. But those are some of the signs of insulin resistance. But also, again, we mentioned this before, PCOS, one of the number one causes for infertility, is more of a hormone slash insulin issue than anything else, because when your blood sugar is high, your androgens levels are going to pick up. And unfortunately, that's going to have some negative side effects for females. They're going to start losing hair, like alopecia type symptoms, and just a lot of things that are not positive. And one of the big things is trouble losing weight. So PCOS, and I want to mention this because I work with so many people with like Hashimoto's, that a lot of times when people come to me with Hashimoto's and we look at their hormones, one of the first things I want to see is this individual have PCOS, especially if they have fertility issues, because PCOS and hypothyroidism looks very similar on lab work and a lot of the symptoms as well. So just wanted to let you know if you're dealing with thyroid issues. I'll send this in the email tomorrow, but hands down, hopefully you're listening. Hands down, one of the best supplements. Now we're going to talk about lifestyle medicine here in a second, but if actually I had a lady come to me years ago, she said, "Hey, I want to lose weight and I don't want to do nothing." I said, "Nothing?" She said, "Nothing. I'm not doing exercise. I'm not doing diet. Is there anything I could do to lose weight?" And absolutely do nothing. And I was like, "Okay, yeah, there is probably one thing you could do." And it's an active form. It's not actually this supplement. I'll have the other supplement that I use with that lady in my email tomorrow. But It's a concentrate of what's in golden thread that is really, really powerful. It She lost 40 pounds in a year doing nothing just by taking it. This supplement is kind of known for weight loss, but it's way more than that. It helps your liver, your gallbladder if you have it. It helps your whole entire lipid panel. It raises your HDL, which is that good cholesterol. It lowers LDL if that's an issue. If you have your triglycerides are high, it will lower that. It will normalize total cholesterol if that's an issue. It will absolutely, it's one of the best things for insulin and glucose. Now, if you get to be careful if someone's hypoglycemic, even though I still like using it even if people are hypoglycemic, because it can really drop the blood sugar quite a bit. So you need to be kind of strategic how you use it a little bit if you do struggle with hypoglycemia, which is the other extreme. Um, if you see blood work where it's below 80 and way below 80 on a fasting blood work, then you may need to be careful with using berberine or golden thread. But by far, just by using this supplement, it is extremely powerful, awesome antibacterial, viral. I mean, it is very, very good for many reasons. So, matter of fact, it's outperformed metformin, if any of you know what that is, without all the side effects. So it's this. If people knew about this supplement, and actually some places do sell it ridiculously high, but it it could is this is one supplement. I'm glad that it is an herb and it there's not a patent on it because for what it can do, this is one of those things a lot of people don't know about yet. It's like K27. People don't know about it because if they could patent this stuff, it would be absolutely it would be off the charts, skyrocket high price because what it can do. So this is one of these, if you want to call secrets. If you get anything else from this talk, just remember this. If you like, I don't want to do anything, I don't feel motivated, but I would like to at least do something for my health. This would be something you could do. But these other steps, if you do these other things, you're going to get better results than that. That lady actually contacted me after that time, and she actually did. She had such good results just taking that. She said, "Well, I can. If I absolutely did nothing but take that supplement, what could I do if I actually changed my diet and exercise?" And it actually even helps even more. So uh, and I'm not going to go through all these today. The hormones, I actually just did one, the insulin. But I want to just show them. Now, insulin is a peptide hormone. Is The same is true for thyroid hormone, meaning that it has amino acids in it, where cortisol and estrogen and testosterone are more your steroidal or fat-based hormones. So there's different types of hormones in the body. Um, and all of these hormones, and there's other ones too, if they're off, you're going to have issues with you could be working out, you know, doing 2 a day workouts and doing all this other stuff, a diet clean. But if you have a hormonal imbalance, it is so you are running uphill to try to lose or get rid of unwanted fat. So getting hormone balance is really, really key. So another one that's very common, by the way, this was on that chart with the blood sugar. If your blood sugar goes high, cortisol brings it back up and people yo-yo back and forth between hypoglycemia. And a lot of people know that cortisol, just like insulin, is connected to weight gain. That's why it's a two-edged sword. If you have high blood sugar, it's gonna, have people store. And I've had people where they've been high and low in cortisol, and they had massive troubles trying to lose weight. And there's a major connection with cortisol and weight gain. Just like insulin, a lot of this is right around the belly button area, visceral fat. And this is a problem because, especially for guys, they seem to actually hold this right around the belly button area. I will say women after menopause start having this issue more around the belly button area. Interesting side note, women, once obviously the ovaries create estrogen, but once you go into menopause, uh, the fat tissue is the main source of where you get your estrogen from, not even necessarily your adrenals. So The fat tissue is actually really important because it is it protects, it's a buffer, but excessive buffer is not necessarily good either. And the problem with having visceral fat, you have important organs in these areas, and that becomes quite problematic. If people are also, if you have multiple children and haven't recovered from, maybe last pregnancy, um, space gets tight during pregnancy, and of course, I've never had a child myself, but my wife has, and it can definitely uh, it can be an issue if you've had multiple children and stuff like that, and and haven't fully maybe recovered. So this can be an issue. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the fats, different types of fat. There's white kind of adipose tissue and brown. And in this little graph here, these little M's are the kind of the mitochondria, and the brown fat is actually more in the thoracic area, up in the chest area, where um, the white fat is just kind of the one where you pinch your skin, like if you're taking a caliper and getting some readings. Um, and the white fat, you'll notice that it doesn't have as many mitochondria as the brown. So its metabolism is so slow compared to the brown, where the brown really has it can actually keep body temperature. It is definitely has a more of a metabolism because it's mitochondria. And one way to stimulate this for weight loss, and actually this can go for the white fat as well, is using calorie restriction or cold water. That's why a lot of I know a lot of ladies probably don't like to hear this because a lot of them maybe not all, but some don't like taking a cold shower or cold plunge or something like that. But it is a strategy, just like doing fasting. I mean, it can be intense, but the benefit, wow, it can be really powerful to kind of chemically change things up. So um, there is another major issue between um, female and males regarding fat cells, even though they basically have the same amount of fat cells. These things can actually swell up based if insulin's bringing in, different things to these fat cells because the liver is overwhelmed and the cell will literally swell. Well, the problem is we have these enzymes and the lipogenic enzymes that are fat storing, and you'll notice that the female cell has way more enzymes for fat storage than the lipolytic enzymes that are fat releasing. And just by the anatomy physiology, it's a little bit more difficult. Females will tend to have more body fat for pregnancy, for hormonal reasons, and even in the physiology here, there is a difference. And even where the fat is in the body, like mentioned before, it's more in different locations than where the guys is around the midsection. So another area besides the belly that a lot of people will notice is, and by the way, when people have visceral fat, it's very shiny. Like if guys have visceral fat on the like if it's on the back, it has a very a shine to it, or around the belly. And as soon as they get their hormones right, that shininess kind of lifts off of them. And also underneath the tricep. Now, some of this can help by getting site work and maybe doing some kickbacks exercise wise or whatnot. But under the tricep is a very common place too. When that cortisol gets high, people tend to put on fat in that area. By the way, I may mention this just right now because it's on my mind. When working out, a lot of people go, "Well, if I work out, I'm gonna work my core and I'm gonna burn fat in that area." Well, the research doesn't somewhat support that. Normally, what happens is that the last place you put on, say you put on some weight on um, your belly, your thighs, and then your arms last. Well, even though you're doing crunches for your workout, it's the last place you put on is normally the first place it comes off. So it almost works in reverse a lot of times. So I'm not saying not to do, there is something about specifically working those muscles in those areas because you're gonna that metabolism in the area it's gonna burn more fat and things like that. But overall, there isn't a lot of research on that whole site thing where if you just work, that specific area, it's gonna come off there first, is what I'm trying to say. So, not against workout at all. We definitely need to work out. So, one of the labs I like to run is called the Dutch lab for females. Sometimes I'll use the blood for males to look at hormones, whether it be thyroid or steroidal hormones. And here's cortisol. And cortisol should follow this has awakening, morning, afternoon, and night reading. And you normally want to have cortisol kind of higher it takes off in the morning when the sun rises. It kind of is that hormone that wakes you up. And then during the morning, afternoon, it will actually it'll kind of peak and then start falling down towards sunset. Basically, it's following the sun. It should drop off. But once people have really, really high cortisol, this individual, the pattern looks okay. Sometimes you'll have an inverted pattern where it's super high at night and low during the day. This person has kind of an overall, the total number of the cortisol is really high and cortisone, which means acute inflammation. So in this case, this individual right here, I would definitely want to go, what is causing the inflammation in this body to where that cortisol is that high? Because cortisol, again, is an anti-inflammatory, whether it be from an infection, whether it be a food sensitivity, maybe it's an injury, maybe they had, surgery on something. But we want to try to figure out why that cortisol and try to, if it's a food sensitivity, remove that trigger, or try to dampen the inflammation in different ways. So, but this lab is really good for getting an idea because this is a very important hormone to help burn fat fast. So, and I'll probably put this in the email for those interested. The Dutch one's kind of salty. It's a little bit more than the blood, but it does other markers as well. So I like using it because it gives a big picture of how well the liver clears, like your estrogens and whatnot. And there's a lot involved in it. A step or benefit number five, or tip number five, is liver health. And by the way, all the top supplements, by the way, that golden thread that I had up earlier is a liver supplement. The best fat burning supplements they have all one thing in common. They are liver supplements. Your liver is your major detox organ. And when it gets backed up, guess where it stores those toxins? In the fat tissue until it has time to deal with it. So the better your liver is working and is doing its detox in the medical literature, this is called biotransformation. And what this means is it takes a toxin and it transforms it in such a way that it can go out through the feces, the urine, or sweat. And it needs for these pathways to work and these steps of phases of detoxification to work, it does need certain amino acids and things like that to work properly. And there are numbers of reasons why it can get overwhelmed. Pesticides, chemicals, excessive hormones, xenoestrogens, all these things can whelm the liver, even though it is a multitasker. Over time, if it gets backed up, it'll say, hey, I can't deal with all this. And the more toxic you are, you're going to put on weight extremely fast. And I want to bring something up. Maybe why I have this cow up here. Farmers, now, I don't know if this is happening to the extent that it used to, but I know that some of the farming practices to get cows really big, obviously this is not free range, or organic farming or whatever, but in conventional farming, some farmers were actually basically poisoning their cow on purpose so the liver would be overwhelmed to actually fatten up the cow, giving it things like cement chips and all sorts of very interesting things that are quite disturbing on purpose to actually poison it so it would pack on the weight so they could sell it for more. This is a major problem. So one of the strategies um, for getting this liver to work better is to actually lower the amount of poison and toxins you're having, whether it be through food or chemicals where you're coming in contact with. Just by simply doing that, that can actually help with being able to lose, especially burn fat. Um, Supplements also, and I'll have an email tomorrow with different things, but glutathione is one, milk thistle. There's a whole bunch. There's different pathways, six different pathways in the liver that sometimes need to be, maybe a specific pathway will need to be supported. That's why I like sometimes doing testing because you can kind of uh, not just guess, but you can support a specific pathway. But glutathione is one of the major antioxidants and liver boosters to help with this biotransformation and with these different pathways of detoxification for the liver. So, very, very important supplement for trying to lose burn fat fast. Number six, let me see what time it is here. Okay, I think I'm doing okay. We got 10 altogether. Talk a little bit about eating right. Obviously, that's kind of important. It's a big piece. I could just say just eat real food. Fat, protein, carbohydrates. The way I like to explain this, especially with in regards to metabolic typing, would be that you could think of your metabolism like a fire, and like carbohydrates are like little twigs on for a fire, and that proteins like about medium-sized branches, and then fats like huge logs. And so, with your metabolism, you want to actually have a right mix of um, uh, carbs, proteins, and fats so that fire is sustained. If you just throw a whole bunch of twigs on a big fire, it's going to blow up and it'll be a nice show for a while, like hyperglycemia. Then that thing's going to crash. Then it's going to be out pretty quick. So you'll want to definitely have a mix. And this is the thing that's interesting. Some people have a very low fire, low metabolism. And so if you throw a whole bunch of big logs on that fire, you may knock it out. They may feel completely lethargic. Whereas someone who is on the flip side and, you give them carbohydrate, and they have a raging fire. I have metabolism like that. I'm going to be, wow, I feel great. Then I'm going to crash because there's not adequate amount of protein or medium-sized logs to larger logs. I love burning fires. We have a wood stove burner here. I just like watching it, the red, all the colors and whatnot. And every night, you have to have a right mix and turn it down so it doesn't, if it all burns out, you're gonna be probably freezing in the morning, um, uh, and whatnot. So you want to be able. To me, it's almost like that. You're trying to figure out what type of balance, what percentage of fats, proteins, and carbs is best for you. And there's ways to do that via metabolic typing. I may send some information with that. When I work with people, we try to figure that out. If we're not on a special diet, sometimes we'll be on some like keto or carnivore like, or maybe like a Daniel, or there's times where it's good to mix it up a little bit. And obviously, we'll talk about fasting here soon. So, um, yeah, this is basically me right here. Uh, Even though I'm more of a protein meat, I do really well with fattier foods and protein. It doesn't mean that one couldn't mix it up and actually go on a vegetarian diet. And here soon, I'm actually about ready to enter a fast, an extended fast, and we'll talk about that a little bit here in a second. And it could be there's all these different ways you could fast. It could be even just more of a Daniel type fast. And there was a couple different types of Daniel fast in the book of Daniel, by the way. But yeah, there's different ways you can maybe have Yeah, for me, even eating like a vegetarian would be almost like fasting if I did that for 21 days. So there could be different ways you could eliminate different things. And obviously, you could do a standardized fast too, where it's more just you're removing, and it's definitely going to trigger some lowering of insulin and going to ketones instead of sugar for fuel. I'm going the wrong way. I'm not going to get into this too much, and I'm sorry for this picture. Some of you are like, "What? You put this picture here?" so, um, but a lot of times when clients come to me, it's kind of interesting because um, uh, they'll explain what they'll want. They want to lose the weight, and they'll explain what they're doing. I'll say, "Well, so what are you doing diet wise?" And it's, well, I'll get up in the morning. I'll skip breakfast and I'll go work out. I'm like, okay. Then I'll come back and I'll have, kind of a brunch or whatever. And they tell me what they eat, and it's basically carbohydrate or AKA sugar. And they'll take a nap on it. I'm like, okay, okay. And they'll get up and do kind of the same thing, but it'll be something they'll work out again, and then they'll eat a pretty big sized dinner. And I'll say, like, wow. I was like, do you realize you're on the sumo diet? And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'll normally ask them, are you trying to gain weight? They go, absolutely not. So it's not by chance the sumo wrestlers get that big. They use science to get that big. So you can manipulate workouts and when you eat and when you rest to actually put on weight. Sometimes just by ordering what you could be eating the same exact food, switch it around in the day and start losing weight on the same food, but it's at a different time. Timing sometimes is just as important as what you're eating. Now, if you're doing keto or fasting, you can, I'm not going to say break all the rules, but everything changes once you do that. That's why I like using fasting because it frees you from all these other things. Um, but long story short, yeah, we definitely want to make sure we're eating the right mix of foods at the right time. Eating organic is going to take the load off the liver and those chemicals. Organic food is as much as 40 times more nutrient dense than non. And the Environmental Working Group releases the Dirty Dozen every year. This is from this year right now. It should be flipping over here soon in 2025 when we get there. But every year, strawberries is number one. So these are the 12 most sprayed with pesticides and glyphosate and things like that. And very interesting this year. There is something different this year. Blueberries made the list, and it had not been on there in years past, and it just made the list. And blueberries, the reason I'm mentioning blueberries is because blueberries is an absolute superfood, um, high in polyphenols, great fiber, and actually is the type of fiber that will actually help blood sugar issues and whatnot. So powerful antioxidants. But the reason why I'm bringing that up is if you're getting sprayed blueberries, then that superfood becomes a challenge to the liver now because it has to detox all these chemicals. So the idea with this Dirty Dozen and Clean 15, which I'll show that here in a second, is for these foods, the Dirty Dozen, try to, especially if you're on a budget, try to go organic or find a farmer that, raises these without spraying. I live in a plain community where a lot of people are non-GMO. They're maybe not standardized organic. They're actually beyond organic. I'll put it that way. Um, with their, strawberries and whatnot. So if you have a community where you can link into or know people that, don't use harsh chemicals, then that'd be ideal for the upcoming year. Obviously, right now it's probably you're going to be a little bit limited. This picture over here on the right, pay the farmer now or pay the farm later, is so true. And I have a lot of stories where people kind of waited and they waited a little too long, and boy, did they pay. I mean, financially, they paid. So it is worth investing in your health because if not, you're going to pay and pay big time when it's time to go to the hospital. You're going to find out real quick that, wow, I thought this stuff was expensive. No, you haven't seen nothing yet. If you don't take care of your health, it becomes a major, major issue. So, um, here's the clean 15. So these foods, they would say if you're on a budget, you wouldn't necessarily need to go organic because they don't have as barely not as many chemicals or anything like that on there. So by following this recommendation, they estimate that it removes about 80% of the chemical load from food. So that's a huge, huge amount. So that's nice. So what foods to actually eat? Well, in the scripture, Exodus 23:25, it is written, and you shall serve Yahuwah your Elohim, and he shall bless your bread and your water, and I shall remove sickness from your midst. And actually, in a couple days, I believe it's the new moon. And I'm going to be doing a message on the blessing. Actually, it's going to be on the covenant, the blessings, the curses, and the return from the book of Deuteronomy. And it talks about a lot of these blessings when we obey. And a lot of people don't realize that even with food and different things, the scripture actually has a lot to say with that. So I won't overwhelm that today, but I will say if this is completely new to you, that the scripture does have a lot to say about food and specifically when it comes to animal products. You may have heard animals that have fins and scales for, in the water, or animals that chew the cud and have a split hoof as being what's called clean or set apart kodesh. Then the other animals that are created, they're not necessarily bad. They're just not created. They're not created for. I'll put it this way: they weren't designed for human consumption. Maybe something else should eat them, and they eat other things, and they really help clean up the environment, do different things. They have different purposes, but when Yah gave these instructions, they are the best insight into our health, and we lock into the blessings when we just, even if we don't fully understand, we enter in and follow that. So I wanted to mention that off the bat because this could be a major hiccup for a lot of people. Over this next year, I'm going to be doing a lot with explaining the connection with the Torah and physical, like for example, one that comes to mind right now because we just got to talk about the liver. The liver is interesting, is connected with. It's interesting how many people have liver issues today, and the reason why I bring that up because there's a connection with adultery and liver issues. Now you may be saying, "Well, I'm not, I've committed adultery or this or that." Um, and that may be, yeah, true, but there is something, especially if for a non-believer, say if someone's a non-believer and they come from a family, because the scripture tells us in the Exodus 20 that the curse goes down to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me. Well, there can be the book of Proverbs talks about those who commit adultery. It's like they're being like shot through with an arrow through their liver. It literally says that, and it's very interesting when people have engaged in certain types of sin, and if the scripture mentions an organ, it rapid deterioration in that. So it gives insight on how to pray, what to do. This goes beyond the physical. There may be like a you want to say a generational thing, but the good news is through the blood of Messiah, he has really come to redeem us from the curses of the law, not the law, but the curses of the law by his blood, his atonement. But also, once we start walking in his ways, we then can actually participate in the blessings because the blessings are to, 1,000 generations and on. So, very powerful. So I don't, there's a lot here that I could mention, but I'm just going to hold off because it's going to take some time to unpack just little nuggets like in Deuteronomy 28 and whatnot. So So foods that we can, that are great for stabilizing blood sugar and for weight loss is a good mix of good proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. And I just wanted to show some here. Um, I don't know how much time I have to go. I may not even get into this, but there is a difference between Atkins, carnivore, and keto. And there's sometimes it can be more strategic for someone that doesn't have a gallbladder to maybe be on carnivore versus keto if they don't have a gallbladder, if they can't tolerate it for a period of time. So everyone's a little bit different. You may have to find the right diet for you. And I do help people try to figure that out if you're interested, if you've never tried keto or different modalities of different diets, like DASH diet if you have high blood pressure and whatnot. So there's all these different diets. I'm not opposed to. I use them therapeutically. I really actually like fasting because then I don't have to be on a diet. Um, so here are some of the lamb and grass-fed beef. These are awesome for stabilizing blood sugar. By the way, fat is the major fuel source. The glucose is the short. If the brain has an option, the body has an option. It's going to use glucose if it's on hand, but if it's not on hand, it'll eventually use fat and ketones. So protein though is more the building block for the body. It can be used. It can be converted into glucose, but it's more of the building block for the body. So the body will tend to use glucose or ketones for primary fuel source because you definitely don't want to be breaking down your muscle to feed your brain. And that becomes a wasting thing, and that's horrible. That's when you have fat, skinny fat people when they lose weight, but it's not fat, it's actually their protein. So they look even worse than they did before because their muscle that they had is gone, and their percentage of body fat has increased even though they have lost weight. So that's actually not good if you're into using your protein to feed your brain a glucose. Anyways, that's a whole nother topic. But here are some good fats, oils, and whatnot to throw into the mix. You got to be careful if you don't have a gallbladder. Um, Here's different carbohydrates, and again, you got to be careful with grains. There's a lot of people that have gluten sensitivity and whatnot, but maybe they can um, with corn or different things like buckwheat, for example, high in glutathione. So a lot of these things could be an alternative and really good for the thyroid health as well. Vegetables, all these things are great. And this is not a comprehensive list, but these things are going to be high in asparagus has a certain type of fibers in it that are very good for helping blood sugar and whatnot, insulin levels. And so these things are really awesome. Fruits and herbs, all these things are great. I want to mention um, figs because there is a sugar in figs, fructose as well, which is a major, that and alcohol can definitely make you store and gain weight. But it also has al allulose, which increases, basically a sugar, the GLP-1. And this peptide is, a lot of people are taking this as like a drug to actually for weight loss, but it's actually in figs and it's in different fruits. It's basically a form of sugar that stimulates this GLP-1 by eight, sometimes 10 times. And this is a very natural way to do this without being on a medication, which is kind of interesting. So, anyways, just wanted to mention that. Actually, maple syrup is another one that has that. It helps it, but I think figs it's a little bit more. It boosts it even a little bit more. Here's some, different sweeteners and whatnot. And I'm not actually even against, even sugar cane if it's in, if especially if you're not using non-GMO things, and if it's, sugar cane and whatnot, there are times where you could actually use it and strategically to right after a workout to have something sweet. Now your cells are ready to take something in, have a little bit of something sweet, and it will fuel that to the cell, the insulin glucose, and everything will shuttle that protein and all that, everything else after a workout. So there are some keys, tricks, if you want to say, tips how to when to utilize sweets and sugars. And actually they're right after or right, you work out, you have an open window about 90 minutes or actually 60 minutes where you want to eat as soon as possible, to actually funnel that glucose, and if there is a spike in insulin there, and carry all those amino acids in, to the cell. It's an open window. So, but that's a whole nother topic. Actually, we're at point seven, which is movement. I'll try to speed up and wrap this up because I'm going to be going over time. If not, I'll have no time for Q&A. So movement, it turns on AMP kinase, which is huge for just burning fat. It turns on the engine to burn fat. So exercise is absolutely awesome, whether it be anaerobic or aerobic. You need to find something that you can do and just move. And it could be as simple as dancing, it could be skating, it could be walking. Find something and just move. Another thing that's interesting about exercise in keto is that in conventional working out, you're kind of plateaued in an hour of burning 60 grams of fat. Well, in a keto state, it can be quite different. You can burn up to 75 to over 100 grams of fat an hour, almost double the conventional way. So if you're in a keto state and exercising, which I will say, if you're not used to doing keto, you may have to wait a while because there's a kind of a buffer period where you got to get used to being in keto before you start really working out. But at the same time, if your electrolytes are right and whatnot, and you ease into it, when you start working out, when you're in a ketogenic state, I mean, you are burning fat rapidly. And so this could be a major weight loss really quick. So that's another tidbit. Um, it's important if you are working out, make sure you don't avoid the areas you may don't like to work out. Maybe you like to just work out your upper body, and like a lot of guys do, and not their legs. Well, it's interesting because um, there's a connection with working out, especially for guys, working out their legs and diabetes. And it keeps it at bay. Guys need to work out their lower bodies, as really a prevention for type like for diabetes and neuropathy and things like that. It's really, really important. Um, so basically, you need a good selection of exercise, mix it up a little bit, anaerobic, aerobic, etc. Vitamin D, sunlight. Get out in the sun. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a billion people with vitamin D deficiency, and vitamin D deficiency, I mean, vitamin D helps the immune system, helps with hormone imbalances. It's huge. By the way, I think we're going to have if I remember correctly, I'm at to double check this, but there is going to be a giveaway of a Juve red light. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. This thing is I think it may have infrared, red light, and near infrared light. Um, I better double check on that. But it's basically it's this model, this particular model has gone out and we're getting new ones. So we're going to put a raffle up for it. And we'll kind of use it as kind of an advertisement of promoting light therapy. And actually, it's really great for thyroid. The research on red light and thyroid is just awesome. And sometimes for alopecia, for hair loss, for MS, um, uh, PCOS, and people that have PMS symptoms actually use it, and the pain definitely helps if they're having painful cycles and whatnot. So it's just using light and getting some major, major benefits. Some people think that maybe thyroid medication will be a thing of the past, and just use light to get the TSH, T3, T4, and all that stuff normalized. So Anyways, number nine, sleep. You need to get optimal sleep because that's when your hormones and everything are balanced. Optimal time is 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. In the summer. It could be 30 minutes later. The first 4 hours are the physical repair. The last 4 hours are the psychogenic or the mental repair. So you have to get that good quality sleep. I could say a lot more about that. And obviously, the last tip I'm going to give is fasting, where I'll probably do a talk on this just on this topic because there's just so much. This is an awesome topic. This is actually my diet of choice that I like. I'm either fasting or I'm feasting, one of the two. So I'm not on really any diet besides fasting and feasting. And this is a not only a spiritual practice, but there's a lot of health benefits as well. And everybody fasts. Everybody every day fasts. And they normally eat breakfast when they break their fast. So it's just a period of time when you're not eating. So when we sleep, we don't eat. So you're fasting. Now, the longer you fast, the more you're going to enter into autophagy, which is the cleanup of the body, and that's really, really important. This is one problem with the carnivore diet. One negative part. As long as you're eating protein, you're not going to really be able to clean as well if you were solidly fasting, because as long as there's protein in the body, autophagy won't happen. So, but if no protein's there, your body's gonna just sweep through and clean up and eat up anything that doesn't need to be there. Very, very important for healing. And this can radically solve type 2 diabetes, a lot of different conditions, blood pressure issues. And like I said, there's so many different types of fasting, whether it be intermittent, 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 5 days, 15 days, 21 days, 40 days. And there's even people that go even on a longer fast than that. That have been kind of under medical supervision, but have gone over a year on kind of a liquid fast. But those people were quite obese to start with. But it's a game changer because if you learn how to fast, it's absolutely free. It does, it'll actually increase the amount of time you have. And that's why I like it so much because the days I fast, I mean, I can do all of these other things and not have to worry about, eating. And it's powerful for other spiritual reasons too, which I'll get into, I think, later. So, anyways, these are the tips. I may put this in the email tomorrow. And if you could even pick one or two of these and just try to improve them, every one you add is just going to make that the ability to burn fat faster and faster, where you get that blood sugar and optimal. You make sure your liver is able to detox, get to sleep at the right time, eat right, move right, think right. Make sure your vitamin D levels and light deficiency is a hormone deficiency. Your hormones balance. I didn't talk much about estrogen or thyroid, but those also play a role. Incorporate some sort of fasting, maybe even just maybe going to 16-hour fast, and make sure you have that supportive community when starting. So, if you're interested in locking down your goals for the upcoming season, and more information on that, I will have some information in the email tomorrow about if you need like specific coaching or whatnot, and need help or community and motivation into reaching health goals. So I'm going to take a few questions. I know I'm running close on time. I don't know who's on here right now, but if you have any questions, I'm going to open it up for a few questions on anything related to burning fat fast. So, well, if there are no questions, I'm going to uh, log off. But hey, thank you for joining me. I know this is kind of a little bit different talk. Um, I will on. I'm not sure if Well, I'm not sure if I'll send out a Zoom link or if I'll just do it myself, but I'm going to have a teaching for the next new moon. This next new moon is quite significant, scripturally speaking. And I will talk a little bit about the blessings and curses, it'll be more of a spiritual talk. But I'm debating whether to do it on Zoom or just myself or my family actually record it with me and I'll just post it online. So, but yeah, I look forward to the year. Well, the Hebrew New Year isn't to the spring anyways, but even 2025, what is in store for us as we kind of yeah prepare for another cycle. So
So
thank
your
you
new
for
moon talk, is that going to be on your website?
I haven't put it up there yet. I'm gonna actually start doing new moon meetings every single new moon, and they're gonna be some of them are gonna be in person. That we're gonna have them. I may pre-record it for people online, but we're gonna start having meetings, and it's gonna be not one location. It's gonna jump around. So, where are you at? What state are you in?
I'm in Alabama. We do new moon celebrations every year, but or every month. But I really was interested in hearing your talk that you were mentioning earlier. So I was just wondering where I would find that.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'll post it regardless. Sometimes it's easier if I'm not on Zoom. I can just record it whenever and just upload it. But I think it's actually a really important teaching because this specific new moon is an anniversary of an event in the scripture, and I wanted to just highlight some things. I feel like we're going into a there's going to be an acceleration. There is an acceleration of more and more people are going to come to the knowledge of spirit and truth, both of these together. Um, uh, a lot of people coming from the church background are going to realize the truth. Like, wow, maybe I have health issues because I, have neglected some flat out instructions here. Um, and on the flip side, a lot of people more in the Hebrew roots community may recognize, hey, um,
We're
not only
lacking more
is
on the spirit side.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we recognize this, the fruit's important, which I actually agree too. Yeah, the fruit's supernatural. To have love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, and all that, all that's supernatural. But also the gift's important as well to be able to do the work of the ministry and to be a effective witness, a Messiah. I feel like there's going to be kind of it's been going on for a while, but I think there's going to be an acceleration of it. Um, and I'll get more into that. I'll have a teaching on the instruments of righteousness. We have we have more than seven portals, but we have these different gateways in our body. And we are actually mentioning them already. Your heart's a major one because what's in your heart is going to, come out of your mouth. That's why when Romans says, if you believe in your heart and confess with your mouth, the Master Yahushua Messiah, you shall be saved. And uh, so the first, you got your heart, you got your mouth, and what you have is spoken out of your mouth. Your ears and your eyes are on the same level, literally. Your eyes and ears are connected. The scripture connects the two, and they're anatomically connected because there are two major sensory for getting scriptural input. They're not the only ones, but they're major ones for hearing, Shema, and to see with the eyes, to read the word and to hear it. Um, then the other one is, the renewing of the mind. That's really happens through the hearing and the, perceiving. Um, then there's the uh, uh, innermost place, the belly area is important where those living waters come out of. And our hands and our feet are actually portals as well. Matter of fact, our hands, I find it fascinating because the laying on of hands doctrine is very, very powerful for healing um, and for impartation and all that type of stuff. So but being believers, we need to have these things set apart. And actually, there's other portals that have to do with procreation, and so these things need to be set apart and sanctified. All these instruments were probably used for evil at one point when we weren't. Romans 6 talks about you're either going to be a slave, you're a servant to whom you obey, whether it's to righteousness or to sin. And it talks about these instruments to righteousness. So it's like taking back all these, our heart, our mouth, our ears, eyes, mind, our gut, our hands and our feet, and all these different things, taking back these things and having them set apart. And that way we're basically an instrument in his hands. But there's a lot I want to. It's been Yeah, there's a bunch on the spiritual gifts and whatnot that it will be quite interesting because I have not heard too many people in the Hebrew roots movement besides maybe Nathan Harmon and Petey talk a little bit, and a few other
Yeah,
people
Petey's big on it.
talk about the spiritual gifts and not just tongues, even though that is definitely one. Um, but really embracing, like, we're just being open, like, Father, yeah, I am open. Who will go for us? Here I am, send me, just being available. And I feel
Well, I
like,
would love to hear your talks. So, however
okay,
you decide to post them, if you could find a way to, I don't know, email it out or whatever, so that we know and we can actually access them, that would be great. And I think Miss Jeannie is raising her hand. Is that what that is?
oh yeah, okay, I do see something here.
Yeah,
Okay, let me see if I can get on here. Okay, where is this hand?
I
Okay,
can
yeah,
lower it.
go ahead.
Yeah, so this is my first time joining and but some of it I didn't hear everything. I just had a question. The two supplements that I did see was the glutathione.
Glutathione
Yes,
and the gold thread.
right. So whenever you do those type of supplements, are you able to take them um the same time, or is it saying take one instead of the other? Because I heard you say something about hyperthyroidism, um oh gosh,
Hypoglycemia. The hypoglycemia,
hyperglycemic.
you got to be kind of careful with the golden thread or the uh, or the berberine because it already drives the blood sugar down. So if you already have a low blood sugar, it could crash you. So you got to be kind of careful with it. Normally, you take it with food, and it doesn't, and it will help you not have a major. I mean, it's not. I mean, insulin's not bad. It's actually very good. It's very anabolic, but the problem is, it just our issue in our country we live in. The average person eats 170 pounds of sugar, and it used to be only 5 pounds in a year,
Mm-hmm.
where that is crazy different. So yeah, we do have an insulin issue. So that's what the little caveat. But beyond that, I've actually had people with matter of fact, I had hypoglycemia and I actually was able to heal it through a fasting and whatnot. So I don't get shaky or anything anymore. Like I can fast. I can fast on demand now, and it's not. That's the nice thing about fasting. You don't become a slave to food anymore, and
Right.
that's awesome to me because I used to be. I would almost like go break down, like almost bipolar. Like throw me a steak or something because I'm already lose it. But no, that the glutathione's more for the liver, and then the golden thread. Actually, the golden thread's for the liver too, but it's more known for the berberine golden thread's more known for the lipid panel and the insulin marker and glucose. And I always test both of them when I look on blood work, and not just the glucose, because I've had people where they were fine in glucose, like they look perfect. Then one time I was like, "Hey, we should check your," and now I just standardized testing. I just normally always check the insulin. And I think this individual had, I mean, I like to see it actually lower than a 5, but they were like, I think it was in the 30s or something. I mean, it was maybe even above the 30, higher than the 30s, their insulin marker. And I've had seen people when they're in the 70s. I'm like, whoa, this is super. It's getting way up there. That they're going to have major issues if it starts creeping up like that.
Okay, that's the question I had was but now that you say it was for it's for the liver as well, because hyperglycemic is something that I kind of self-diagnosed myself. Just looking at some of the symptoms I used to have like for the past 5 years. But I'm to the place now where I'm fasting as well, and I feel the energy and all that. I just didn't want to start the first. I didn't want to just start something without actually knowing everything about it. But I'm gonna do a little more research on that particular one. But
Yeah. Yeah, I was
the other one,
definitely,
yeah.
yeah, basically, this is just a very general kind of talk. I mean, there's so much more information, and everyone's so different that hopefully this will give you at least a list. Though, okay, if I get this in check, the more things you have, like, okay, got my liver in check. It's just like a check. The more things you have, the faster things are going to happen. I just mentioned that supplement because that lady literally came to me and said, I don't want to do nothing. I'm not going to exercise. I'm not going to diet. Absolutely nothing. Because I'll take one supplement. That's all I'm going to
I
do.
got you.
I was
Thank you
like,
so
okay.
much.
I was like, okay.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you know, I went to the Cub Health for my blood sugar test and my cholesterol.
Uh-huh.
It showed that my blood sugar fasting was only 76, but my A1C was 5.8. Does
Okay.
it mean I am pre-diabetic?
Um, your A1C is a little up. What did you say they test your glucose? What was your glucose?
5.8, my A1C. And
Yeah,
then my
I
blood,
heard that part. You said another marker. I
oh,
couldn't.
76. My
Wow, that's
blood,
interesting. So
yeah.
you were 76 in your glucose?
Uh-huh. I have to
That's
get it more.
actually that's interesting because that's you would be one that I'd actually want to look at more of your lab because that's actually low. I mean, your
Yeah,
glucose.
my sugar, yeah, it's really
I'd be
low.
very deceived if if you didn't have your. Did they do your insulin at all, or just the A1C?
A1C and that sugar.
Not insulin,
I will check it here. I will check just a minute. I'm gonna.
because normally they'll
And then
the
now I
A1C is an
feel like
average.
I don't know if okay here. Okay, March. Okay, March 8, 24. Okay, my A1C was 5.8, and then where's my sugar? My glucose fasting was 79 or 75.
Yeah, that's not. I mean, it's a little low, but it's
So
not.
low.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's kind of actually interesting. I wish they would have did the insulin to kind of see what else is going on there. Did they do your lipid panel,
Yes,
LDL or
yeah,
triglycerides?
my yep, my total cholesterol level was 215, and then my high density lipoprotein was 62. Used
That's
to be
good.
79, and then now it, you know,
Dropped a
went down
little
to
bit.
62. And then my LDL or bad cholesterol was 128. Used to be 159, but it went down, so that's good. But
Hmm.
my good cholesterol went down. It should be higher, but it's still good.
Yeah, it's still above 50, which is good.
Uh-huh. But I was
Um,
wondering about my sugar, because once a while I feel dizzy.
yeah,
If I move my
yeah,
head,
yeah. It makes me wonder if there's, I wish they did your insulin. You may have to request that next time, but
also that's different, the
it
insulin
does seem like
first.
there's something going on there, and because your glucose is very, it's for a fasting glucose, it's a little bit low. If you start
Mhm.
dropping below 80, that's getting more in hypoglycemia, which is kind of weird, interesting because with the A1C being elevated, um,
Yeah.
kind of conflicting. I'd be curious to see where the hormone, the insulin, because sometimes the insulin is more of a powerful marker for me because that's a hormonal. It's like, wow, that definitely is going to be um, an issue. Yeah, your total cholesterol that looks good, and actually for females, I like actually it's interesting because on the for functional medicine, I mean, we actually like it a little higher, like a 240 for I mean, I know some people are like, what? but but yeah, your LDL may be a little bit up, but if it's relatively going down, that's good compared to the last time. It's moving in
Uh-huh.
the right direction. The problem right now with being in Indiana this time of year, um, the vitamin D levels are going to be off. So vitamin D plays a massive role in blood sugar stability, hormone stability, and whatnot. And with so many people deficient in vitamin D, that's also a good marker to have them test because if anybody's below a 30 and if they have autoimmunity, we like it to see it even double almost 60 and higher on blood work. Um, and especially this time of year from now until about the end of February, it's a good time to take a supplement or find some way to, light wise to get that vitamin D up. Um, Also, I never brought this up, but there's normally a time of the year to do certain things too. Kind of like the whole spring cleaning, get the leaven out. It's actually interesting because it seems that at the end of February, as you transition, that a lot of the certain detox organs are at optimal levels. So, I was thinking about having a program in sync with kind of how the flow of the year goes. The I know a lot of people eat with kind of what's available for the season because the body does kind of work around, this kind of your geography. And there is something to that. And so not fight against, the flow of, different things. So in the springtime, it may be a good time for some of the individuals that if they want to do a heavy duty type of a so-called liver detox or gallbladder, things like that, that tends to be a time to do that as well. Not that they couldn't do something mild like uh, glutathiones, and I use different forms of different supplements with diet to help make sure the liver is functioning properly. I was born with jaundice, so and a lot of people are born with jaundice where they'll use a light to kind of help. But it seems like it's been a an organ that has affected me for a long time, and you can know if the liver is inflamed if you can touch it. And it's if any organ is like really painful to touch or tender, there could be an issue there. Now, if you you know a lot of alcohol consumption or something like that, that could be part of it as well. But there is like a technique. If I was in person, you show this technique as kind of a almost like a CPR thing for the liver. Um, but it helps it kind of as you kind of pump this liver area, it actually kind of pushes the blood out, and as you let go, it's like a sponge, and it sucks the blood back in. It actually can you got to be really careful because it can be a lot for some people if they're if their liver gallbladder is having an issue. You got to be kind of um, go gently with that. So, but there's a number of manual therapies that also are interesting regarding organ health, um, and that's a whole nother topic. But just kind of thought of it with the liver. But anyways, any other questions? All righty. Well, hey, may Yah bless you and have a good night's sleep and have good dreams and visions. And I'll uh, hopefully see you sometime in the future or on another Zoom chat. So, shalom, shalom, and thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Shalom.
Thank you, Dr. Carr. God bless.
Shalom.
Shalom.